and welcome to our webinar about our employability toolkit at BeyondAutism. My name is Emily Ross and I'm the Specialist Vocational Advisor whose job has been to create the toolkit with the aim of increasing employability for people with autism. Joining us, we have Martin, who was a former intern at BeyondAutism, Audrey, the Chair of Governors, and Lisa, who is our Head of Post-19. If you want to say a little bit more about yourselves, now's the chance. Martin, you're still on mute.
My apologies, everybody. Hi. My name's Martin Kelly. I used to be an intern at BeyondAutism. I'm currently looking for work at the moment. I think that's about as brief as I can make it, Emily.
Okay, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Lisa Robinson and I'm Head of Post-19. So my role is to help support our young people in gaining skills within life skills, but also in employability skills. So using this toolkit alongside Emily, who's kind of set this all up, will be really invaluable for all of us.
Hi everyone, my name is Audrey Pantelis. I'm Chair of Governors for both Park House and Tram House schools. In my previous life, I was a head of school of a special needs school, a generic special needs school based in northwest London, and I've been an educator now for the past 30 years. And so, especially in the last school that I set up, which was a brand new free school, and it was an all-through school from 4 to 19, this particular area was a particular passion project of mine. So really excited to be able to take part in today's webinar and just to be able to kind of give some highlights as to some of the excellent practice that you will see in this amazing book.
Thank you. So the toolkit was created over the past 16 months after a grant from City Bridge Trust was awarded to BeyondAutism. The aim of it is increasing employability for anyone with autism or similar conditions. It's for employers and individuals. Also parents, carers, job coaches, etc. can also benefit from it. There's examples of reasonable adjustments in the workplace, but also at interview stage and application stage, because we know that that's a big barrier for people accessing work. And there's loads of different support in there, including vocational profile, vocational assessments, and signposting for further help too. So what are the challenges of people with autism in finding work, and why do we think only 22% of people are employed at the moment?
Who do you want to answer that first?
Well, Martin, as
yes.
You're in that position looking for work, you might have a good input here.
I would say, well, I think maybe there's quite a few more challenges now due to the pandemic, I guess. But I guess one of the barriers would be, I guess, a lack of understanding about autism and Asperger's by employers. Some people are quite lucky in that they find employers that do know a little bit about it. Someone that I interviewed with before the pandemic hit said that we know a bit about autism and Asperger's because we just hired someone who has a child with it, so we're understanding a bit more about it. I guess that's like the main barrier is the lack of understanding, certainly. I was thinking about being included in office stuff, but that's not really happened. to me. I've not been deliberately excluded from anything in the office. I'm always welcome. Why are only 22% employed?
It's probably the same reason then, isn't it?
It's probably same reasons, yes.
Yeah, that's a good point, that it is a lack of understanding from employers of what people can do,
Yeah. I guess
Lisa,
they go on.
I was just going to ask Lisa if she has any extra input on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo exactly what Martin was saying. When we're looking at work experience placements or supported employment for our young people, we come up against exactly those barriers. If people aren't aware of somebody with autism or have some connection, whether it be a sibling or a family member or extended family, it's really hard to get in with work placements. And so it is all about educating the workplace, but also giving them the confidence. I think also, some employers have potentially had some bad experiences where you've had people with SEN or with autism kind of coming into the workplace, but it's either been the wrong workplace, they've not been paired up or matched up properly, and therefore then causing quite a lot of unwanted stress, I think, for the employer, and also that they're just not educated in how to support our young people. So this toolkit is really, I think, helpful for the employer to say, this is the way you can communicate with somebody. This is how you can, get them to do what you want them to do. But yeah, so I think that is the main area that is a barrier, is about educating employers and also just society, I think, in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and let me add to that what Liz has said, if you like. So we're building on one another's comments. I think society does have a big role to play in that, because conversely, you may get employers that are brilliant and that get it and really want to embrace and welcome, neurodivergent people to come to be in the workplace. And I'm seeing that increasingly. But then what you will possibly then have is, within the workforce, the lack of understanding there, and actually that can then cause the barriers, and then it might cause somebody to leave, when actually, even though the employer is supportive, actually the workforce haven't had that training, haven't had that understanding. So therefore it becomes almost like a bit of a hostile environment. It's just difficult, and who wants to put themselves in a difficult situation every day? Nobody goes to work to do that. So that's also definitely a part that's played. But I think as Liz has said, that the toolkit really kind of addresses that. It's well, I'm sure we're going to be asked about why we like it, so I'll save that. But yeah, I think that's also that's definitely a point about the wider workforce. Even though we've got some really good employers that are increasingly becoming more aware and want that diversity in their workforce.
Yeah. Thank you. Absolutely. I just want to say that if anyone's watching this, it would be great to hear what you think. You can put your questions or comments in the chat box, and you can also find a link to download the toolkit and our resources pack in there as well. So the next point, Audrey, follows on quite nicely, because as a panel, you've all seen the toolkit now, which is great. So what do you think will be the most useful parts for employers?
Well, I just think it's amazing in that I think that, well, the whole thing is gold. The whole thing is gold dust from start to finish. I wish I'd written it myself. So it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. It's definitely all the things over time that I've seen over the past 12, 13 years while I've been in special needs, where I thought, wouldn't it be good if it's all in this one document? It's all really, really good. So what would be especially helpful? I love the coloured tabs, actually. So when you're looking through it, with the fact that you've got areas where some of it might be orange, just orange only, or some of it might be blue, or both, which I really liked. I love the idea of both. So knowing that you've got a really clear place to look if you're not sure, and knowing who needs to know what, because I think too many times there's lots of information given. There's lots of information out there, actually. It's amazing in one respect. It's becoming more and more well resourced, but in a confusing sense, simply that you might have one bit of information that tells you to go down one direction and another that tells you to go in another, and that can be problematic. The other thing I really liked was not only the coloured tabs, but I really liked the resources section, the access to work section, and the signposting section. The signposting probably was it's not my favourite bit, but it's one of the highlights definitely for me, simply because there are other organisations that also want to do what we are doing, and all of their information in one place is just really helpful. So it becomes it enables a bespoke way of finding the information that you need, and so you don't get sidetracked. So yeah, I mean, there's more I could say, but I don't want to steal the thunder of the other two panelists, so I'll shut up and let them speak.
Thank you.
Yeah, so for me, the highlight was probably the vocational profile. Just as an educator, we would like to be able to have a toolkit that we can show the students' achievements and the skills that they've got, so that we can then go to an employer almost like, a mini CV to say, these are the skills that they've got, this is what they can do. So, is there any way of them accessing employment with your organization or business? And then also, I think something that was also really interesting for me within the toolkit was the reasonable adjustments. Sometimes we talk about job carving, but I think also within our teaching approach, we kind of teach the errorless learning and those kinds of approaches. So it's about kind of looking at what is those reasonable adjustments. It's not to say that, they have to literally change a job role completely to make our young people access work, but it's about how we teach the skills for them to be able to access work as anybody else would. And I think that's, quite a big step for us to kind of get our heads around. It's not about adjusting things constantly for our young people, but how they can access the world of work with our support and the skill set that they need.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say my favourite, favourite bits to read about the toolkit, the bits I found interesting were the communication and behaviour sections. Mainly because it's sort of made me think a little bit, particularly the bit about communication. I mean, we talk and we communicate all the time, but we don't really think about the way that we're doing it. I mean, there's a pie chart on the page 15, spoken words, non-verbal, tone of voice and everything. I mean, well, I say it's easy to look at someone and say, oh, they're having a good day and bad day, but sometimes I misjudge that. Lots of other people would do as well, but I find it difficult occasionally. Tone of voice, that's as important, and I think that it's divided just right, actually. And when you're talking about behaviour and the tips for the employer, if your employee is struggling, step back, try this instead. The last half was some suggestions for forms, I think, vocational profile, which we talked about doing for myself at BeyondAutism, but I don't know if we actually got round to it.
So, well, we did do one, but it didn't look the same as the one in the toolkit.
Yes.
That's why you're thinking that.
Okay.
You did a very early copy of the vocational profile when I was creating it.
Right, and it would have been a little while ago. So
yeah.
I'm not saying I've completely forgotten everything about BeyondAutism, but there were certain things that have been. It's just over a year, isn't it, since I started it?
Yeah. Thank you. The vocational profile. It's good that a couple of you picked that out, because it's a very important way of making sure that the support is person-centered, and making sure that the individual has a voice and that they have a choice in what they're doing. And Lisa, like you said about reasonable adjustments, that's a way of making sure that we can support that individual to make those choices and to access what they want to do. But also it often comes to be best practice for the employer. So if you think about a cleaning role, for example, where you have a mop one colour for the toilet area and another colour for maybe the shop floor area if it's in a shop, and different kind of colours of different cleaning equipment. You know, that would have been a reasonable adjustment when it first got introduced, but obviously now it's commonplace and everyone kind of benefits from that system. So often the reasonable adjustments can benefit the whole team, which is good as well. So thank you for that. We're getting a lot of comments in the box as well about person-centered approach and things like that. So that's great.
Yes, I had a quick read.
Yeah, so it's hard to keep track of it all. Yeah. So what do you think the most useful parts for people with autism, the most useful parts of the toolkit would be for people with autism?
I would have said, where's it gone? Definitely reading the behaviour bit, perhaps. There's a couple of things. There's one thing in there about, tip for the employee: communicate your needs with the job coach and employer. I think the vocational assessment will be handy as well.
Yeah, so assessing kind of someone's skill level and what support they might need.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and as someone said in the chat box, every person's autism, Asperger's, their needs are different. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah. So yeah, I think the behaviour is a good point to bring up, because every workplace is different as well and has different kind of workplace culture, which as someone without autism, I might take for granted that I'll pick it up after a couple of days of being in the office or a week or so. However, someone with autism or Asperger's might not pick it up or might not pick it up as quickly. So yeah, kind of understanding the workplace behaviour and that individual employer's culture as well is important and can be a barrier.
Yeah.
One thing I found, Emily, that was really helpful was, I think will be helpful for individuals, will be the vocational assessment, the traffic lighting set up, because I think that's really clear. So there's no confusion as to if you are quite an independent person and you do want to do it yourself, but you recognise that you need help. This is a nice, clear way of saying, okay, we know you can do this, and so you're going to be able to do this by yourself, but this is the one area we want to help you with. And it's been identified, and of course, if you're doing this alongside, that young adult, then it's really helpful, because then there's clarity in that. And I think overall, what I found about the whole toolkit is about the fact that there's a clarity of use, a clarity of need, and a clarity of purpose for what this toolkit will do. So all this is really doing now in one wonderful booklet is just the ability to be able to locate what do I need. It doesn't cover everything, of course, and it's not trying to, because it is a toolkit. And the idea of a tool is that you use it for when you need it. You don't use it per se, because otherwise then it's not a tool, it becomes something else, which is probably not as helpful. So the idea is that you've got something that you can dip into and dip out of. So I think that aspect is great. As I said, Liz said about the vocational assessment, I love that bit as well, but I especially liked the traffic lighting system. I thought that's really helpful, because that will help that young adult have what's the word, independence I was looking for, and autonomy. That's the thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that, Audrey, I think also with the vocational profile, I think it's really useful to have that, because you can actually have some good and challenging conversations with the individual. If they, for instance, are wanting to maybe become a receptionist, but actually hate sitting behind a desk from 9 till 5, then you can have those conversations saying, is that the right kind of job that you would want? And you can then kind of discuss further options, or, explore other job opportunities that might have the skill set of, I don't know, being outdoors, or being a bit more out up and about and not just sitting behind a desk. So I think that just sparks conversation, but also, you know, working with families, because a lot of our young people are 18, 19, so families are still very much involved. So again, it's kind of looking at what the family's aspirations are, what the young person's aspirations are, and how we can kind of support aspirations for the family as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I think the vocational profile is great for kind of sitting with the individual and discussing the job market, because, you know, if they wanted to be a receptionist, for example, and there wasn't any vacancies as receptionist, should we maybe encourage them to look elsewhere, or, you know, wait? Martin, this is a question kind of directly for you. So when you first started looking for work, do you think that the toolkit would have been helpful for you?
Yes. When I first started looking for work, it was through the National Autistic Society, who had links to a couple of companies that I did work for, and those companies had people with autism and Asperger's working for them before. So the companies knew what to expect. Well, I say know what to expect. As I say, everyone is different and has different needs. If I didn't find those jobs via the National Autistic Society, then yes, the toolkit would have been very useful for me. The last couple of jobs I've had, certainly that toolkit would have been very handy, because they'd never had somebody with Asperger's syndrome working for them before. So, but when I first started, it was kind of through the National Autistic Society.
Yeah.
So, you know,
so you had that
not
support.
quite right at the beginning, but at some certain points, yes.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. So what you're saying is the companies who had the experience of working with autistic people were a bit more accessible jobs for you. And
yes, they were more accessible. They were more understanding. They were more, you know, okay, what can we do to make this the best experience for you? Very accommodating.
Great. Just reading through everyone's chat. So we kind of mentioned it, Audrey, I think you mentioned it actually, about wider society. Do you think that wider society will benefit from more people with autism being employed? And if so, how? So Audrey, I don't know if you want to expand on your point from earlier.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really important, and I mean, part of the work I do, as well as being chair of governors, is that I work independently. I work for myself, and I'm a equality or rather equity, diversity, and inclusion specialist, and I deliver training. And one of the things now is it's not just about it is about the protected characteristics in the Equality Act and how that is really key now. And I mean, those protected characteristics need to be exactly that, protected. And also celebrated as opposed to tolerated. So I think there's a real understanding, and it's a wave of understanding, and it's a wave of awareness that is now kind of I think we're all embracing now, probably in the light of what happened. Obviously from a racial perspective things have changed, but it's making now the spotlight is on any form of difference, any form of diversity we are looking at and unpacking in a more meaningful way. And I think prior to the period that we're in now, what we've had is kind of opportunities to have those highlights. It's been a bit tokenistic, and then, you know, the spotlight goes away and then we focus on something else. Now it feels like the spotlight is on permanently, and you know, employers, as some people have said in the chat, you know, employers know now that to have a more diverse workforce is actually a strength. And if anything, you are way behind the times if you're thinking that you have to have everyone that looks the same and talks the same and thinks the same. Groupthink doesn't work. And also, we know from a financial perspective, actually, it's not desirable. The best work teams, the best workforces are those that are have that wide variety of people working within them. So I think really now there is no excuse, and especially when there's people like me that go around, telling workforces that this is what you need. There's no excuse now to not be aware. I think in the chat somebody had rightly said, I think it might have been David or somebody had said that actually, I think it was Will actually that talked about employers need to really think about their staff being trained and being up to date with that, so that when workforces are becoming more diverse, that there is that acceptance that it's not a case of people feeling isolated. So I think it's really key now that, and there is a real responsibility on employers to ensure that not only are they up to date with what is needed and the different obviously adjustments that and the positive action that they can take, which is a part of the Equality Act, to ensure that their workforce is diverse, but also on top of that their workforce, within the workforce internally, they're actually doing the work to ensure that people who are from a diverse background are welcomed and celebrated as opposed to tolerated, because I think toleration, no one wants to be tolerated at all, and I think there has been that kind of approach and that needs to change.
Yeah, thank you. Lisa, do you have anything to add on the benefits to wider society?
Yeah, I just think young people with autism or Asperger's, I've had some experience of young people gaining employment through Project Search, and the transformation within the organizations that they were working has been phenomenal. And yeah, we've had some feedback from employers saying, this young person had such attention to detail that it actually showed up, some of the other staff. So they had to work harder to kind of come up to scratch with what this young person was doing. So I think our young people have got a lot of potential, and we just need to kind of, get those doors open for people to see that, because I think they have got a lot to offer. And we can learn from them, I think. So absolutely.
Martin, do you have any?
Liz has kind of stolen a tiny bit of my thunder there, because she mentioned about attention to detail and hardworking and showing up other people. I don't think I've ever been in that position where I've showed up other people by putting the detail in. I guess it's there's also this thing about another way of thinking, another way of doing things. If an employer sees me doing things that might not quite be the way that they've done it in the past, but they see it's productive, they might go, oh, okay, well, he's doing it, and that's actually quite good. I wouldn't have thought to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Just,
so sharing ways to do things, and especially if it's a more productive outcome, employers are going to love that, because they love increased productivity, don't they? So it's a great point.
And of course, to say you have to do it this way, and I can't really quite do it that way. You have to think of a different way to do it that satisfies both the employer and yourself.
Absolutely. What do you think a resource like this, what difference do you think a resource like this will make for people who are looking for jobs? So, Martin, you're obviously looking for a job at the moment.
I think it would certainly. I'm just thinking about the thing I had to answer this.
Shall I come back to you? Or?
If you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. So, Lisa, obviously you're working with our post-19 learners who soon will be joining the workforce, hopefully. So soon we'll be looking for jobs. And what difference do you think this resource will make?
So I think for a lot of our students, the vocational profile and that toolkit will be, I think that'll be the most important part of that journey for them, to be able to kind of put pen to paper, in whichever shape or form that might be. It might be that, some of them are using pictures, or others will be able to read or write. But for them to be able to kind of have a record of what they've done. And I think that also just gives them a sense of achievement and purpose, and that they can feel proud about their achievements, and, take that to employers. And hopefully, with our support and support and encouragement with employers to kind of work alongside them. I think also for one of the things for us as a barrier is also, to give the right support for our young people. So alongside the toolkit, you need to have the right people with the right set of skills to support the young people into, whether it be supported employment, work experience, placements, but having somebody that, is on the same page and wanting to work with the employer. So coming up with solutions rather than kind of saying this, oh no, this is not going to work. So I think, so again, this toolkit will be really useful for my tutors, for my supervisors, instructors, all to kind of work through, so that we can make sure that everybody's on the same page and working towards the same goal.
Yeah, thank you. Audrey, do you want to add anything to that, or?
Probably not really. I think Liz has kind of encapsulated it really well. I think what's really interested, even in the last 3-4 years, when I was last really thinking about this and trying to get this getting work experience and also then employment off the ground in the school that I was leading, there were lots of barriers. This toolkit starts to break down those barriers in such a, it seems, I know it's not simple, because it isn't simple. This is a complex subject, but what the toolkit does, it breaks it down in such a way that actually there's a method to a methodology, which I think is really, really helpful and logical as well. And just, slightly digressing for a second, I've got a new puppy at the moment, and one of the things it's really making me really aware of, and I'm applying it in all kinds of my business, is the idea that when you do something brand new for the first time, you are often bombarded, as I am and have been bombarded with lots of information that tells you to do different things at different times. And it's at one time I was reading a book on puppy training, and then somebody's telling me at a puppy class, oh no, you need to do this, oh you need to do that, and you can just become overwhelmed, and in the end either do nothing or do everything badly. What this does is gives you a chance to just go, okay, right, catch your breath. Let's focus on what this person needs, this young adult needs. And it's really, what I love about it is it's a systematic kind of approach. So I think really what it is, and again, the law is actually on, this is actually, it's legalistic. It's got weight, because actually, as somebody has said in the chat, employers have to look at the Equality Act, and they do have to put stuff in place. And if they're not doing it, or if they choose not to do it, they're actually breaking the law. Yeah. So, and no one wants to break the law, and no one wants that publicity of that. So it's not even the fact that you have to threaten it. It's actually, this is lawful. This is legalistic. You need to be following it. So that's what I think really what I wished it was around literally 3 or 4 years ago. I'm glad it's around now, and I'm sure there'll be many editions of this. I'm sure, because it's going to be dynamic, isn't it? It's going to be in use all the time. Yeah,
absolutely. Martin, would you like to add?
I don't really have anything to add, I'm afraid. I think Liz and Lisa have pretty much summed it up.
Okay,
I wasn't quite able to.
No problem. We're getting a lot of questions through, so I might start going through some of them in the chat box. This is quite an interesting one. What can you do if an organisation is resistant to change or refuse reasonable adjustments? Obviously, Audrey, you've just mentioned about how obviously the Equalities Act, it means that employers have to, by law, make those reasonable adjustments for their employees if they need them. I think if an organisation or an employer is resistant to change, I think a lot of it from my experience in this field of work, a lot of it is from fear of the unknown, thinking it might cost them too much money to do it or too much time to do it. Obviously, in the toolkit, we've got a bit of information there about access to work, which will help fund the adjustments if they're going to be costly to the employer. It'll help with that, which is from the DWP, to make sure that anyone with a disability or health condition can access the work that, you know, everyone should have a right to access. I think a lot of it, you know, a lot of ways that we can combat is communicating with the employer, giving them that support, whether it be step-by-step support or kind of going in as job coaches or employment advisors and helping with that, or offering training. We have got some employer training which is due to go live as well. So, you know, having that kind of autism awareness training for the employer or their employment team, so that the colleagues can support the individual as well. Yeah, I think it's a lot to do with kind of education and communication, really. I don't know, Martin, if you want to add anything to that. Or
yeah, it's just literally down to communication, education. Yeah, you're right that they do worry about change and the fear of the unknown, but talking, educating, that's essentially what it is, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, Audrey, have you got anything?
I think you've nailed it there, Emily. I think that's really it. And as Martin says, it's about that clear communication, consistent communication. I think the other thing really as well is employers just need to think about their workforce and think about, you know, as we've said, and in fact Martin made it clear about the different ways in which different people work. We know from research that shows us that, you know, that only having a neurodivergent workforce is better for the workforce, and actually commercially and financially is more astute. But also that's the point, isn't it? We all do things differently, and actually that's what you need. A good workforce has people do things in a particular way, but they do it brilliantly, and it's that strength and diversity that needs to be shown and kind of showcased within any good workforce. So I think really, if anything, they should be seeking it out. And remember, positive action, which is part of the Equalities Act, encourages that and strengthens you in that, so you can consciously advertise for a neurodivergent workforce. You can consciously do that because that's all part of the act. So it's, if anything, rather than thinking, oh, how can I, where maybe, it should be, yes, we can. How do we do it? This is how we do it. And so, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Someone has also asked, what can we do as individuals to encourage these changes in organisations and in society more widely? Lisa, I don't know if you have anything to say on that, or?
There we go. Yeah, I think, you know, the most important thing is probably just to spark those conversations. I think nothing is going to happen without conversations. And then once you start those conversations, it's then about kind of thinking, okay, so what can we do? You know, and it's not about, you know, trying to employ 10 autistic or, you know, Asperger's young people into the workplace, but start with the one. You know, if every organization just takes on one person, that'll make a massive difference nationally. So I think, it's starting with small steps, and also just working with organizations like ourselves or Project Search or NAS, but, you know, working with organizations that have got the knowledge to support the employer in making it a success, I think, is the key.
I would. Sorry. Oh, thank you, Martin. Thank you. You're gracious. I was just going to say, to add to that, I think with regards to employers, I think they just start from where you are. Starting from where you are is probably the best thing you can do. You may well even find that within your own workforce already, you may well have somebody who has autism, and actually it might be that you just simply look and reevaluate the support that's already already, you might have in place that might need, revamping, and that might lead to further employment. It might not, but in a way, don't disregard what you've already got. If you've already been that forward thinking and you've got that diversity within your workforce, make sure that is strengthened and that is good, and then move on from that. So yeah, definitely just start from where you are.
Yeah, that's just it, really.
Yeah, I think as well, as individuals, we shouldn't be kind of scared to comment if someone, either an organisation, employer, if there's a way that they could become more inclusive, or more accessible for someone within the autistic community, then we should feel like we should be able to bring that up and to mention it to them in a supportive way, with examples like a link to the toolkit of how they can become more inclusive and accessible. So there's a comment about people needing more substantial support. So how would the panel see the toolkit being used to benefit autistic people with significant barriers to work that need a greater level of support? Personally, using the person-centered plan is the best way, because you can assess the level of skills that individual has and the level of support that individual might need. Also being an advocate for them. So, using our voice if they don't necessarily have a voice the same way, using our voice to make sure that they've got the right access and the right support levels. Obviously, these have been in post-19, you might know a bit better what we can do to advocate for people with more barriers.
Yeah, we've got quite a number of students within our cohort that kind of fits that profile. And again, it's about accessing, employers and giving the right support, I think, and whether it be that you start off with, a 10-minute work experience placement, then 15 and then 30. And, it's not about expecting our young people to go into a workplace for a whole day for some of them, because it's not feasible for them, and it's just not you're setting them up to fail. So I think it's about, working with the employer, looking at what is achievable for the young person, but that everybody has a positive experience from that. So that they, the employer learns from us and from our young people, but at the same time, our young people are getting the experience that they need to develop their work skills. So again, I think it's just about, looking at bespoke programs, whether it is, work placements or work experience as such, or is it that it's more general, like we're working with one organization called Petite Miracles in Hammersmith. And so they do kind of workshops where the young people go in and, if they're very creative, is let them go and do that. Like we're not expecting all of our young people to be sitting in an office, kind of doing IT skills. So it's what is the interest of the young person. If it's animals, then, get them a placement at a farm, which they can enjoy and they can actually actively contribute towards. So it's about the young person. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think we need to be a bit creative ourselves with the kind of support we can offer and the jobs that are out there, but also, thinking about what our young person can achieve. We don't actually know what they can achieve. So we should never kind of set limits, but we should obviously have realistic support in place.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's all we've got time for, really. I just want to say that this whole webinar has been recorded, so we will be sending that out for people to access at a later date if they would like to, or if they've dropped out because of internet. You can also request a hard copy of the toolkit, so the toolkit that Audrey was very kindly holding up. You can get your own copy if you don't want to read it all on screen, because it is a lot of information, and it is nice to have a physical copy. or you can download in the chat box right now. But yeah, I just want to thank the panel for joining me and everyone for attending. So yeah, thank you.